Yep, I'll be doing this presentation on the phone, as you can see, since I can't make the programs on the computer work. The story, yeah, I'll just start. The short story Karma by Khuswan Singh is a short story. It's written in the year 1950, and it's about class difference in India and the relationship between the English and the Indians. Um, the story is about, the main character of the story is Mohan Lal. He's in India, he lives in India, he has an Indian wife, but he doesn't identify himself as English. He rarely speaks Hindustani and he always speaks English with an Oxford accent. And everything about him is English, and being English at that time also meant feeling better, maybe, than than the ones, because the English were colonists and they usually saw themselves as better humans than the ones they were colonizing, because of what I'll be talking about later in The White Man's Burden. Um, well, yeah, so um, yeah, I'll just continue on the resume. Um, the story takes place in the first class section of a train in India, where Mohan Lal he sits, as he has sat there many times before, with the Times, reading the Times folded in a way that English people walking by can see that it's the Times. He's hoping that they'll engage in conversation, and he'll impress them with offering them English cigarettes in a golden little box of cigarette box, and he'll sit there in a fine outfit, and he'll be so English that they'll be baffled, and he loves talking to these English people and feeling British, um, because that's what he identifies himself with, and he craves this acknowledgement from the English. Um, while he's sitting there, his wife Lakshmi is in the same train, but in the women's section, and that's because Mohan doesn't want to be seen with her, because his only purpose of being married to her is to have kids, which they haven't got yet. She, like him, is a native Indian, but unlike him, she acts like it as well. This shows, when she eats, she stuffs her mouth full, so her cheeks are bulging out, and when she's done, she burps. So she has no manners at all. She's very Indian. He's very English. Um, the train stops at a station, and two English soldiers they board the train, and they're directed to the lower class sections of the train. But Mohan steps in to let them sit in first class with him, because he wants to talk to them and want them to acknowledge him as a British person, as he usually does. But it doesn't quite work that way, because the two British soldiers they might be English, but they're certainly not gentlemen, and they see him as a lower class citizen, and they don't care at all that he speaks with an Oxford accent and he's very finely dressed. Actually, quite the contrary, because they say that it's the way he talks. It's a bit too much of the king's for them, which means that his English is a bit too fancy, a bit too snobby, and they speak with a, like, I don't know, Cockney accent. I don't know. They speak like they're definitely not upper class English men. They when they tell them to shut up, they say keep your ruddy mouth shut, which definitely isn't high class English. And also, it says that their ears are inebriated, which means that they've been drinking, which also isn't um, very British. Mohan also sits with a Scotch, but he's not. He's not affected by the alcohol, while they obviously are. Um, so they kick him out of the train. They kick. They throw out all of his stuff on the platform, and as Mohan is sitting there, the train rolls by. Mohan sees his wife, and she spits at him. And now that's how the story ends. Her spitting at him. Um, which might mean that she's not exactly happy about the way he's been acting, and she's very glad to get rid of him. But that's not a part of the resume. I'll now characterize Mohanlal. Mohanlal is very complacent. He really likes himself, and this is shown in the start of the text, where he is looking in the mirror and he says this about himself. I'll read aloud. Distinguished, efficient, even handsome. That neatly trimmed mustache, the suit from Savile Row, the carnation in the buttonhole, the aroma of eau de cologne, talcum powder, and scented soap all about you. Yes, old fellow, you are a bit of all right. He really likes himself, and he really doesn't like his fellow countrymen. He, on several occasions in the text, describes them as with negative adjectives, and generally it's very obvious that he sees them as lower class people, and himself not as one of them, even though they're all Indians. But he sees himself as British, of course. And yeah, well, as he finds out, he's, even though he sees himself as British, and a part of being British at that time is also being a colonizer of other places, he finds out that even though he sees himself as that, the Englishmen don't see him as that, and he acts like an upper class British person, and he behaves like it. He has all the qualities of an upper class British gentleman, but he's still no better than two lower class soldiers who speak with a not so classy accent, who are drunk, and yeah, very low class Britishmen. He's no better than them, and they can kick him off the train if they wish to do so, and they did, obviously. So that's probably yeah, that's that. I'll perspectivate the text to A White Man's Burden by the writer's name. Got it somewhere, but I can't quite find his name. But anyway, The White Man's Burden, it's a poem, and it's about, well, the white man's burden, and it can be written in two ways. You can read it as an imperialist, and you can read it as well, with a bit more modern way of looking at colonization and yeah. If you read it as an imperialist, it's about the white man's job, obligation to spread civilization and Christianizing these uncivilized parts of the world, and by doing that you are also saying that you are better than these people, and you have to take control over their country in order to organize their society so this society can become civilized. But yeah, that also means that they have to see themselves as as better people, and that shows in our story Karma, when the two soldiers kick Mohanlal off the train, because he has done everything that the British people want. He's integrated himself and become a proper gentleman. He's upper class British. If only he was actually born in England, or he looked like an English person, but he's not. And the British soldiers see themselves as as better people than him, and that's their way of thinking. That's the imperialist way of thinking, that of course they're better than him because they're British. Yeah, that's my presentation.